Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I sincerely welcome everyone to Radha Gopinath Temple for our weekly Sunday festival. On His Grace Govinda Prabhu's request, I will speak a particular verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto. O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This verse gives the sum and substance of devotional life. One must first become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Das, das, anudas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised, and he also showed by his own example, that a living entity should always desire to be a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis. Gopi bharatu padakamalayor das, 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 anudas. This means that one must accept a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession and is a servant of the Lord. Under his direction, one must then engage one's three properties, namely the body, mind, and words. The body should be engaged in physical activity under the order of the Master. The mind should think of Krishna incessantly, and one's words should be engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord. If one is thus engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, one's life is successful. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is written, Shushushro Shadadanasya Vasudeva Kataruchi Sgan Mahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtana Sevanat. By serving great souls, the taste for hearing about Krishna awakens within one's heart. To love Krishna means to ever be enthusiastic, eager to hear about Him, to speak about Him, to chant about Him, to serve Him with one's body, mind, and words. In these two verses, it is very clearly told that when one becomes the servant of the servant of the servant of those devotees who only find shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord, then the mind can think of Krishna properly. Then one can think of the transcendental attributes and one can truly glorify those attributes. This param dristva nivartate, higher taste, comes when Krishna is pleased. And we find here the secret of how to please Krishna, by serving the servants of Krishna. An example. In Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, we read about Ishan Thakur. Ishan was for a long time a very simple household servant for Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi. He cleaned vessels, he cleaned the house, he took care of the lawn or whatever was outside, he kept it clean. Very simple services. He was there when Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra, they lost 8 daughters. And there was great gloom and sorrow in the house. And he was there to help them in every way. Just cleaning this and cleaning that and preparing this. Because he was rendering such simple services to the dear devotees of the Lord, even at a time when there was great sorrow and frustration in the house. It wasn't a happy environment when the children were dying, one after another. But he stayed, and he served faithfully. Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi were not wealthy people. They were Brahmins. Elsewhere in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Jagannath Mishra explains that he really had very little material resources. One time he said to Sachi Devi, when they were talking about Nimai, when he grows old, making a good living by becoming educated, he said, I'm a very scholarly educated Brahmin. And what's in our house? Hardly the basic necessities are here. But there are people just down the road who cannot even write a single letter of the alphabet. And they have lines of pundits loitering outside their door, coming to beg for some donation from him. So through this we understand Jagannath Mishra materially lived a very, very simple life. So having a household servant like Ishan, Sri Ishan Thakur, it wasn't a very highly prestigious thing from the material perspective. He probably didn't get paid anything. He was probably just getting kept. Yes? Just being provided a place to sleep and food to eat. And he didn't want anything else. I don't believe he was getting paid. He was living in a poor family, not poor, they were rich spiritually, but a very simple dwelling. And he was their housekeeper, just doing all the simple chores for these 2 great devotees. But because he faithfully served as the servant of the servant, he was right there as Sachi Mata's caretaker in many certain ways. He was right there when the Supreme Personality of Godhead was born. Nimai, on that full moon night, the month of Falgun, during the lunar eclipse. He was there, cleaning up, helping out. He saw the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Nimai was just a little tiny baby, then obviously there was a lot of extra cleaning to do. And Sachi Devi had Ishan always there at her side, helping out. And little infant Nimai would crawl on his lap, and he would embrace the little baby, his golden body. Described when you embrace him, it was like embracing a puppet of butter. He was so soft, so effulgent. And he was always there with Jagannath Mishra would go out and, do his teaching and his work as a great pundit. Sachi Devi was home just taking care. And Ishan was right there assisting Sachi. She was doing the motherly work and he was just cleaning up and helping. Sachi Mata, if she needed something, he would go and get it for her. Servant of the servant. But he witnessed all the pastimes of the Lord from his birth till the day he took sannyas. There are many stories. When Nimai grew older and Nityananda Prabhu came, when the two lords would come being invited by Sachi for lunch, prasad, Ishan would wash their lotus feet when they would come in the house. They wouldn't allow Sachi Mata to wash their feet. But because Ishan was just a simple servant, they didn't really mind. Because he had that position of a simple servant. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda allowed him to wash their lotus feet, something they didn't allow many people to do. They certainly wouldn't allow exalted people to do it in positions. There's that story when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda came for lunch and Sachi Mata came out to serve them. And she saw that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda both had little 4-year-old forms without any clothes. One had a bluish complexion, one had a white complexion. They became baby Krishna and Balaram with 4 arms. And she saw Vishnu Priya, the Lord's wife, on his chest. It's like a little deity on his chest. And she's, can you imagine? Mother feeding your child, and that's what he looks like? So she became so ecstatic, she fainted in ecstasy. And all the food she was holding just scattered everywhere on the floor. And Nimai took his original form again and washed his hands and washed his mouth, because he's Brahmin, very strict. And he ran over and picked up his mother and said, "What happened? What happened? Why did you faint like that?" Pretending he didn't know what he just did. And she couldn't say anything. She was just in so much spiritual love. She just silently went into her room and cried in supreme joy. And while she was gone, Ishan was there cleaning up all the food scattered on the floor. That's what's written about Ishan. He came there just to clean up all the rice and the sabjis from the floor, and he probably ate it. Very simple. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did leave home as a sannyasi, so many other devotees would go to Puri every year to see Lord Chaitanya. But Ishan was faithful. He was faithful. There's no record of him ever going to Jagannath Puri to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though he personally loved him as much as everybody and anybody. Why? Because he was the servant of the servant of the servant. He basically, after Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya left, Ishan Thakur became the assistant and caretaker of both Sachimata and Vishnupriya. And after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, that wasn't an easy service. We discussed briefly in Sri Mayapur Dham Vishnupriya Devi's condition. Sachimata's condition in separation from the Lord. It was like Radharani and Yashoda's condition after Krishna left Vrindavan. It was unbelievable. They were practically helpless, crying. They practically couldn't do anything for themselves. They were paralyzed in the ecstasies of love and separation, weeping and weeping and weeping and crying out Lord Gauranga's name. And Ishan Thakur was right there for both of them, to serve them, to care for them. He never left their side, ever. As long as they lived. And Bamsi Badana, he was a great devotee of the Lord. By the Lord's inspiration, he came also to help at a certain point and brought the deity of Lord Gauranga. This is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. He may have left Sachimata and Vishnupriya for the highest purpose of searching for his own inner ecstasies of love and separation, and also to bring Krishna consciousness or pure bhakti to the world, traveling here and there. And it was a great sacrifice. But he didn't really leave them. He was ever embracing their love and separation from within his heart and their hearts. But also, factually, whenever Sachimata cooked food for Nimai and offered it, she saw personally Nimai come and eat it. There were 4 places Lord Chaitanya would always go in his mystical transcendental forms. When Srivas and his associates would do kirtan, when Nityananda Prabhu would dance, when Raghava Pandit and his sister Damayanti would cook, and when Sachimata cooked and offered food for the Lord. She would see the Lord. But she was so humble. The nature of devotees are so humble that she thought she must have been imagining or hallucinating or something like that. She couldn't believe that she saw him, but she couldn't believe that she actually saw him. She had the whole experience of seeing the Lord, but she couldn't believe it. And Lord Chaitanya's in her heart. He knows that. And he wanted to assure her that every time she cooked, he was there. And one time he sent somebody from Puri to Navadvip to give Sachi Devi that message. Do you remember you offered that prasad? All the preparations I liked the most. Do you remember you offered it to me on the altar? And when you came back, the plates were empty. And she was so humble. When the plates were empty, she didn't think, oh, Nimai came and ate it. She thought, I must have cooked everything, and then put the plates on the altar, but I forgot to put the food on the plates. So she was really bewildered. She was sure she put the food on the plates, but she must not have, because there's nothing on the plates. So she ran back, took the plates, ran back to the kitchen, and filled them up with prasad again and offered it another time. Now she didn't tell anybody about this. But Ishan saw it all. Ishan would see everything. He watched everything, because he was right there. All the leelas of Mahaprabhu with his mother, with his father, Ishan was always there watching. All the ecstasies of Sachimata's humility and her motherly love. He was there to assist her, to encourage her. So she would think like that the Lord didn't eat. The Lord Chaitanya sent a devotee, I believe it was Damodar Pandit, to tell her that actually, do you remember that? You made that offering, and then you came back and there was nothing on the plate, and then you offered it again? He said, I ate it both times. The reason that you didn't see it is because I promised you I would come and eat your food, and sometimes you even see me with your own eyes coming to eat whatever you prepare. But still you don't believe it. Now, nobody knows about this except me and you and Ishan. And Vishnupriya, that deity of Mahaprabhu, he promised her, whenever you remember me with love, you will see me. And factually, for the rest of her life, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas when she was about 15 years old. She lived till over 90. And her whole life was worshipping that deity. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu literally, personally, manifested himself and reciprocated all of her love in the form of that deity. He was there. She wasn't just worshipping a wooden replica of her Lord. The deity is God. And especially because the deity reveals himself according to how we have love. So in this particular form of Dhammaishwar Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving her the same experience, the same feeling, the same everything as if he was there, because he was right there. So he didn't leave his devotee. He never forgets his devotees. He's bound by the love of his devotees. Yes, Ishan was there as a caretaker for Sachi and Vishnupriya until Sachi Devi passed away. He was right there to help Sachi remember Lord Chaitanya. Of course, she didn't need any help, but still, as a service, he was helping. Always chanting the glories of the Lord, doing simple services. He was there when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he heard the news that he left this world, and Nityananda Prabhu left this world. Sachi Devi later left the world, continued to clean the house and keep everything nice and be a caretaker, along with Vamsivadana sometimes for Vishnupriya. And then she passed away. Ishan Thakur lived a very long life. Because we read in Bhakti Ratnakar how Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, and Ramachandra Kaviraj, they all came to Navadvip for a parikrama. And all the associates of Lord Gauranga practically were gone, except Sri Ishan Thakur. He was still at the house. He was still at Mahaprabhu's house, taking care of it. And he was the one, and when, here are three of the great, they were the greatest acharyas of their era. After Mahaprabhu and his associates were the six Goswamis, after the six Goswamis was Narottam, Srinivas and Ramachandra. Such scholars, gurus, most unbelievable kirtan singers. But the three of them, one by one, fell at the feet and worshipped Sri Ishan Thakur, the simple housekeeper. Beautiful, so beautiful. Why? Because they understood what is worshipable is to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. And it was Sri Ishan Thakur that took them on the whole Mayapur Navadvip Parikrama, which is explained in great detail in Bhakti Ratnakar. Because he knew everything. He saw it all. Because he didn't want anything except to serve. In this verse, it is very much a different setting than Sri Ishan Thakur doing humble service in Mayapur Dham for Sachi Devi. Here we have the words of Vritrasura. He was the leader of all the demons fighting against the demigods. And these are his words. The demigods are praying, "My Lord, please give me the strength to conquer these demons so I can get my abode back. What to do? Give me a weapon to kill this person." That's what they're... And the person they're trying to kill, who's supposed to be a demon, he's praying, "Oh my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant, of your eternal servants, who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship." This is a prayer of the heart, a prayer of pure unalloyed devotional service, the rarest of all rare things. How is it possible? There are many lessons to learn from this story. Lessons of what to do, and especially lessons of what not to do. In our conditioned life, we especially need to learn what not to do. But in order to practice what not to do, we have to learn what to do. And from the opposite perspective, in order to practice what to do, you have to understand very carefully what not to do. So it begins with Indra making an aparad. Does that sound familiar? He was just sitting sitting on his throne. People are singing for him and fanning for him. No, this is an austerity that you have to do when you're the king of heaven. Because when you're... As long as it's an austerity, you're very safe. But if it's no longer an austerity, then it's very dangerous. When people praise you, if it's an austerity of service to accept that, for a particular higher purpose, then that's devotional service. But if you really like it, and you become attached to it, and then you expect it, then it's very dangerous. Because sometimes you're not going to get it, or you're going to get something different. And then you make aparadhs and you fall down. So it's very difficult. So here Indra was, getting all worship, and Brihaspati walks in, his guru, and he didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. He didn't do anything. He just let everyone go on praising his glories and serving him. And Brihaspati understood that he's going to fall down. He's going to lose everything because he did not honor a superior person. So Brihaspati didn't say anything. He just left. Now in Kali Yuga, things are not so subtle. But the same principle is there. So Brihaspati just left. And Indra, who's a devotee, understood when he didn't see Brihaspati anymore. I didn't honor him. Now he's gone. It's too late. I have to find him. Otherwise I'm going to lose everything and fall down. And he looked everywhere, but Brihaspati was gone. He hid. Because he knew that Indra had to learn a good lesson. And unfortunately, the way many people are in this world is to learn a lesson. Actually learn it. Not just intellectually. Not just theoretically. But to really learn something means deep in your heart you're not going to do it again. Sometimes there has to be some reaction. So it really goes deep. And then we're really cautious not to do it again. So Brihaspati understood. He made an aparadh. It wasn't good for him. So he left. And Indra was looking all over for him to offer obeisances. But he was gone. Haribo. And then Indra started condemning himself because he understood how proud and puffed up he was because of his position in all of this environment, that he did not honor a superior person, and now he was going to suffer. And he did. The Asuras, who were honoring their superiors very nicely, they attacked and defeated the Devatas. As we were explaining this morning, the Devatas were like refugees, running and hiding in an environment which was subjugated by a foreign power that has taken over. That was what it was like. Their abodes were conquered. They couldn't even go in their own houses. They were occupied. Their services were occupied. It's like a government takeover. Yes. So they went to Lord Vishnu. And Lord Vishnu kindly told them that you should go to Vishwarup. And he will give you the Narayan Kavacha. Narayan Kavacha is the armor which is non-different than the Lord himself. And that will make you undefeatable. So Vishwarup was a great Brahmin, priest, son of Twasta. And he performed a yajna, a great yajna. He was a very empowered person, Vishwarup. And by his mercy, he actually endowed Indra with the Narayan Kavacha, an infallible armor where you cannot really be defeated. And you gain great power. It's the Shakti of Narayan himself. And there's a whole chapter about the different mantras that Vishwarupa and Indra chanted together to put this Narayan Kavacha on every limb of Indra's body. And then Indra led the Devatas, and they conquered the Asuras and got everything back. But they did not live happily ever after. There's no such thing unless you give your heart to God. Then you could live happily ever after. But in this world, any other arrangement, we'll see what happens. So now Indra has everything back. And he has his Narayan Kavacha. But he hears a rumor that Vishwarup, he's well-wisher of everyone. He wants everyone to be happy. He doesn't discriminate. He's regularly doing yagyas in the fire with ghee and chanting the names of the different devatas for their protection, for their happiness, for their prosperity. He would give the Swaha, Indra, Swaha, Agni, like that. Murlidhar and Rohini Kumar Prabhu probably know the exact mantras. Vishwarup, on his father's side, was related to the Devatas. But on his mother's side, he was related to the Asuras. So he had sympathy for them. He didn't agree with what they were doing. He wasn't on their side. He was actually on everybody's side. He wanted everyone to be happy ultimately with bhakti. So secretly, he would offer oblations to the Asuras as well as publicly to the Devatas. Now why was he offering? Because he wanted to give blessings to them. He wanted God's blessings upon the demons too. Yes, Nityananda Prabhu, he was going to the most demoniac people, trying to give them the blessing of the holy name. So Vishwarupa was very compassionate. But Indra, he interpreted it according to his own psychology. His psychology is, he was very attached to his position, his wealth, his opulence, his service. And he just lost it to these people. And somehow or other, by Vishwarup's mercy, he got it all back. But now he was thinking, if Vishwarupa is offering oblations to us, we're getting great benefits from him. But he's also doing it to them secretly. So they may get power through that blessing, and they may come and conquer me. So Indra went to that same Vishwarupa, who he honored as his guru, and who gave him everything. And he cut off Vishwarup's heads because of his material attachment. He lost his intelligence. Killed a Brahmin, his guru, who saved everything for him and his whole race. And then he did some tapasya because he realized it was not the right thing to do. But then he was living in his beautiful abode. Vishwarup's father, Twasta, was very, very disturbed. He killed my son after my son did so much for him. So he did a yajna. And from that yajna, he created Dhritarashtra. who was the brother of Vishwarup. But he was a very different type of brother. He was not a Brahmin doing yajna. He was a massive Kshatriya. Brahmin by birth, but Kshatriya by occupation. And he was, day by day, he was growing and growing and growing. And he just kept growing. We see little children grow. Unbelievable how many babies are born in this congregation. Almost every other day there's a baby that I'm putting some grains in their mouth or something. Wherever I go in the world, I'm getting emails. These are 3 names. Please choose one for baby, So many babies. But you see them grow little by little by little by little. But then it seems like only days go by and those babies are having babies. Seems like yesterday when I was putting some sweet rice in their mouth. It just seems like a few days ago, and now I'm putting sweet rice in their baby's mouth. And I don't know what's going to happen next. But we see babies growing. But this Vritrasura, the Bhagavatam explains, every day he was growing. He was growing not by inches. When he was an infant, he was like a hill. Then he was like a mountain. And in a few days, he was practically covering the sky. That's why his name is Vritrasura means he was covering everything. It's huge. And he became the natural leader of the Asuras, because the Asuras had lost everything. So they wanted to retaliate. So he had a trident, and he led them forward. And when the demigods went to fight with the Asuras, they just saw Vritrasura, and they heard him roar. Can you imagine a mountain roaring? I'm not going to try to imitate that. Because it would be an offense to Vritrasura. He roared and they all fell unconscious. Now these are devatas, they're powerful beings, they're universal managers. And his roar, they all fell unconscious. And they just looked at him and ran away. There wasn't even a possibility of trying to fight. He was so big that he didn't have to even use his weapon. He was just stepping on the devatas like you would step on ants. Of course, you're not supposed to step on ants. But that's what it was like. So the devatas, they were helpless. So what did they do? They went to Lord Vishnu. Ultimately, whoever we are, the Lord is our only shelter. And he told them that Narayan Kavacha. Lord Narayan said, that Narayan Kavacha is none different than me. I gave that Narayan Kavacha to Dadichi. Dadichi gave that Narayan Kavacha to Twasta. Twasta gave the Narayan Kavacha to Vishwarup. And Vishwarup gave the Narayan Kavacha to you. That's why you're so strong and powerful. Now that Dadichi due to his mystic powers and his very, very deep devotion, he's a very, very empowered person. What you should do is approach him and ask for the bones of his body and have Vishwakarma make a thunderbolt out of his bones. Now they needed all his bones, not like a finger. So what does that mean? To take everyone's bones means the person has to die. So they understood from the Lord that the Aswini Kumars were very, very dear to Dadichi. So they approached him, the other devatas, and said, we need your bones. So Dadichi, he was a yogi. He was really a yogi. He had no attachment to the body. He realized that he was the eternal soul. He realized his soul's eternal relationship with God. He knew that at death he was going to go back to Godhead. There was not a problem giving the body up. For a higher purpose, it's very good. If that's what the Lord wants me to do, the Lord told you, so that's what he wants me to do, he was ready and willing. But he wanted to test the demigods. He wanted to hear some nice philosophy from them, which he didn't. He kind of did. He said, everybody's attached to their bodies. Nobody wants to give up their body for anything. You're asking me to give up the body. And they were preaching to him, after that, hearing that one should be willing to give up the body for a higher principle. Well, why they didn't think like that. This is an important thought. It's very easy to preach to someone else. But the real challenge in life is to do it yourself. And over the years, what I have seen, and I'm not going to give any examples because some of them are very personal and graphic about things I've seen over the years. But if you tell someone to do something that's very difficult, and you preach to them why they're supposed to do it, in course of time, you're going to have to do the same thing. It's almost like a reaction. If you're telling someone else to do something, Krishna's going to make you live up to what you speak. Does that enthuse you to be good preachers? It's very true. You tell someone, you should... Huh? You agree, thank you. I'm very honored by your agreement. But if we take a position, a high position, say to someone that this has happened to you, why are you acting like this, you should be like this, well, it's almost inevitable because you've said that. A similar thing's going to happen to you. And then Krishna's going to be watching to see whether you do what you said should be done. Because Krishna wants us to live by what we speak. Well, the devatas, they spoke very nicely to Dadichi. They said, we should be willing to give up our lives for a higher purpose. Dadichi said, all right, I am. And he just went into meditation. And he merged his gross body into his subtle body, and his subtle body into the various elements, and then he just meditated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his heart of hearts, and gave up his life. By his own free will. Nobody killed him. He just meditated himself to death. Physically. Went into samadhi, and then into mahasamadhi. Then they took his bones and gave it to Vishwakarma, and he made a thunderbolt, a vajra, for Indra, which was specially designed by the instructions of Narayan to kill Vritrasura. So they had this thunderbolt. It was really an amazing thunderbolt. You can imagine. And they went marching with all the devatas. And all the asuras came, and they were all on the battlefield, and they charged at each other. And the asuras began the fighting. All their best possible weapons and all their powers they exerted. And there was just clouds of ammunition just covering the devatas. But Indra, with his thunderbolt and the other demigods, they destroyed everything. And everyone was in perfectly peaceful condition. There was no problem. Just seeing that the best of everything they had didn't work, the asuras became afraid. We have no other. We attacked them with the best of everything, and it didn't do anything to them. So they all started running away. And the devatas, they were very angry. They started running after him and started attacking him from the back. Should I continue? No! And Vritrasura was watching the whole thing. And he started preaching to his own people. So why are you running away? You're not supposed to run away. You shouldn't be attached to victory or defeat or success or failure or all these dualities. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you have to do your duty. Just come back and fight. It's glory. Whether you win or whether you lose, if you perform your duty properly, this is your victory in life. This is what Krishna told Arjuna. Vritrasura is telling the asuras what Krishna told Arjuna. Krishna tells Arjuna, you fight for the sake of fighting for the right cause. Because you're serving me, it's perfect. Whether you win or whether you lose, whether there's honor or dishonor, success or failure, if you perform your work for the right purpose, in the right way, that's your victory. Not the external physical results. Those are not really very important. You're going to attain a high destination if you die performing your duty properly. So don't run away. But they couldn't listen. They were too afraid to hear what he was saying. They all ran away. And the devatas were chasing after them and just shooting from behind. And Vritrasura spoke to the devatas. He said, these asuras, they are totally useless. He said, when they were born from their mothers, it was like their mothers passing stool. This is the way devotees preach sometimes. It's in the Bhagavatam. He said, they are so attached, they are cowardly, they are running away, they're not listening to any good preaching. But what, are you any better? You're attacking them from behind. This is against all Kshatriya principles. You're never supposed to fight or kill people who are running away from you. You're supposed to attack people who are enthusiastic to fight you. That's Kshatriya. Shameful, shameless you are. Running after people who are just running away, shooting from behind. If you really want to show your prowess, I will fight all of you now. Stand before me with your weapons. See what you can do. And then he roared. And that roar, Indra fell down unconscious. Every demigod fell unconscious. It was just the whole unconscious scene. And Vritrasura could have just stepped on all of them while they were unconscious. But he didn't. He just stood there waiting for them to wake up. He could have roared again. But he was noble. He wouldn't, you see, he preached to them in a certain way and he lived by it. He wouldn't fight them unless they were willing to fight. So they came to consciousness again. And they were really scared. And then Vritrasura started stepping on them and crushing them. Really, can you imagine these big, huge demigods getting crushed under someone's feet? Sorry about that. Just some devices to keep you awake. But at the time it wasn't funny, actually. It was very serious. He's crushing them. And Indra, who has the Vajra, the thunderbolt, he has to try to protect. And he stands before Vritrasura on his Airavata elephant. And he takes his mace and throws it at Vritrasura with all his might. Now, this mace is a very powerful, divine astra. It's not divine, it's a celestial astra. Nobody could withstand the mace of Indra. But Vritrasura effortlessly caught it in the air. And then took that mace and struck Indra's gigantic elephant, Airavata. And Airavata's head got cut open and started vomiting blood and fell down with Indra on top. And Indra, with celestial nectar, he fed Airavata, and all his Airavata's wounds were healed, and he got better and stood up again. But Indra was but seeing that, his powerful mace had no effect. He realized that there's no possibility of fighting this person. So Indra just stood there. He couldn't do anything. He was stunned. How can you fight something like this? It's like, how do you fight an earthquake? How do you fight a cyclone? It's unstoppable. So saying that, Vritrasura began to preach. He was telling Indra that said, he who has killed a Brahmin, he who has killed his spiritual master, Indeed, he who has killed my brother is now, by good fortune, standing before me face to face as my enemy. O most abominable one, when I pierce your stone-like heart with my trident, I shall be freed from the debt to my brother. First, he's preaching this way to Indra. He knows he's going to lose. But he's so compassionate, he wants to enlighten Indra. He's speaking what Indra needs to hear, to learn his lessons, to be a good devotee. Only for the sake of living in the heavenly planets, you killed my elder brother, a self-realized, sinless, qualified Brahmin who has been appointed your chief priest. He was your spiritual master. But although you entrusted him with the performance of your sacrifice, you later mercifully severed his heads from his body the way one butchers an animal. Indra, you are bereft of all shame, mercy, glory, and good fortune. Deprived of these good qualities by the reactions of your fruitive activities, you are to be condemned even by the man-eaters. Hare Krishna. When Rakshasas condemn you, that's really low. Now I shall pierce your body with my trident, and after you die with great pain, even fire will not touch you. Only the vultures will eat your body. Now please understand, Vritrasura is not blaspheming Indra. He's trying to enlighten Indra. But these are the words Indra needs to hear to get enlightened. You are naturally cruel. If the other demigods, unaware of my prowess, follow you by attacking me with raised weapons, I shall sever their heads with this sharp trident. With those heads I shall perform a sacrifice to Bhairava and the other leaders of the ghosts along with their hordes. But then he starts now he's chastised Indra. He's trying to put him in his place because he acted cruel, he acted shameless, he did kill his guru. He wants to pierce Indra's heart, to wake him up, to change him. The chastisement and even the curse of a saintly person is only meant for our welfare. But, now he gets philosophical. But if in this battle you cut off my head with your thunderbolt and kill my soldiers, O Indra, O great hero, I shall take great pleasure in offering my body to other living entities, such as jackals and vultures. I shall thus be relieved of my obligations to the reactions of my karma, and my fortune will be to receive the dust from the lotus feet of great devotees like Narada Muni. Is everyone following? So here Vritrasura is speaking what is within the pure heart of a Vaishnava. He's such a servant of all living beings. He understands his body is not him. He's the eternal soul. Let my body serve others. It will be glorious if you kill my body, because then I get to serve the vultures and the dogs and the jackals. They get to eat me, and they'll probably enjoy me a lot. I'll be serving them with my body. But then he's speaking about his eternal soul. He's saying that in doing so, in your killing me, I shall be relieved of all my obligations to the reactions of my karma, and ultimately my prayer, my anticipation is when I die, I will get the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees like Narada Muni. O King of the demigods, since I, your enemy, am standing before you, why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? Indra was so stunned and afraid, he forgot about the thunderbolt. He was just sitting there, just like, there's nothing I can do. Vitrasura could have just stepped on him right then, or thrown his trident on him right then. Vitrasura could have killed him. He was superior in every way. But he's actually the best, he's the best well-wisher of Indra in the whole world. He's saying, you have a thunderbolt given to you by Lord Vishnu. It's meant to kill me because it was given by the order of Vishnu. I know I'm going to die. I'm supposed to die. Use it. I want to die. That's the will of the Lord. Although your attack upon me with your club was certainly useless, like a request of money from a miser. But Indra wasn't laughing like you were. If you request money from a miser, what are you going to get? Not money, for sure. You might get other things, but not money. You might get insulted. The thunderbolt you carry will not be useless. You need have no doubts about this. Vishnu personally told Indra how to make the thunderbolt with his own potency. And Vishnu said, this thunderbolt will kill Vritrasura. Now, in the situation of this battle, Indra had doubt in the word of Vishnu. Otherwise, he would have used his thunderbolt immediately. He had doubt whether it would work. But Vritrasura had complete faith in the word of the Lord. He knew absolutely for sure. Vishnu said how to make this thunderbolt to kill me, therefore 100% that thunderbolt is going to kill me. So wake up, you sleeping soul. Throw the thunderbolt at me. I don't want this demoniac body. I want to go back to Godhead and be an eternal associate as a servant of the servant. I want to be with Narada Muni again and Parvat Muni and all of these great sages serving the Supreme Lord face to face. Throw it. This was his faith. O Indra, king of heaven, the thunderbolt you carry to kill me has been empowered by the prowess of Lord Vishnu and the strength of Diditi's austerities. Since you have come here to kill me in accordance with Lord Vishnu's order, there is no doubt that I shall be killed by the release of your thunderbolt. Lord Vishnu has sided with you. Therefore, your victory, opulence, and all good qualities are assured. By the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage. I shall give up this body and this world of material desires, fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Shankarshan. I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Shankarshan has said. Vritrasura ki jai. The goal of life is to do the will of the Lord. Our home is the spiritual world. In one of the versions of the Bible it is said, don't make your home in this world. This world is a bridge, cross over it. Don't build your house upon it. The purpose of material existence is to ultimately attain the human life to give our hearts in loving devotional service to the Lord. And when inevitable death comes, which it comes, and it could come at any time for anyone, then we return to our eternal spiritual position. The soul awakens to its natural state in the loving service of the Lord forever. The whole purpose of this world is to attain that state. And while we're in this world, we try to do wonderful things for others and help them to attain that state. Then this world becomes like the spiritual world to us in our life. And when the inevitable comes, just like that prophet gave the benediction to a saintly person. Whether you live or die doesn't make any difference. If you're living, you're blissfully serving the Lord. And when you die, you're going to be blissfully serving the Lord. Now you're serving Him here. When you die, you'll serve Him there. Doesn't matter. Maro birako bijo icha tuhar nityada saprati tua adhikar. Thakur Bhakti Vinod. My Lord, if you want, you can protect me. If you want, you can kill me. I'm your servant, and unconditionally, in any situation. So Vritrasura, no, he doesn't look like a friendly Goswami. What is that verse? Vaishnavera kriya mudra vigyena bujai. It's hard to understand a Vaishnav by what their mind really is. And you can't judge a Vaishnav simply by external appearance. He wasn't wearing tilak. He wasn't wearing kanti mala. He definitely wasn't wearing saffron brahmachari clothes. Didn't have a shaved head. He had massive coppery hair. And his eyes were so angry looking that they both looked like each eye looked like a noonday sun. Just looking at them, you couldn't look into his eyes. They were so hot with rage. And his body was like a big, dark mountain. And he had a beard and coppery color. He was probably the ugliest thing that anyone has ever seen. He was a monster. Even the greatest special effects master in Hollywood or Bollywood could not create anything as fearful as Vritrasura. But he was for real. But yet, he's speaking such pure ambrosial words of devotional nectar. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and always think of His lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as His own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. One who possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his position, his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. Now herein we understand the difference between one who understands that Krishna is the proprietor of everything and one who does not. one who is actually a devotee, even if they are fabulously wealthy, with great opulences, they don't have to undergo enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Because they're attached to Krishna. And Krishna never leaves them. They're feeling that higher taste within their hearts. That's where they're getting their satisfaction from their love for Krishna and their service to Krishna. And all this opulence and all wealth that may be there, it's there to be used for Krishna. And if it's not there, whatever I have or don't have. If I have nothing but my tongue, I'll be happy just chanting the holy names. And God gives everyone a tongue for free. Yes? You all have it. You don't have to work and get a PhD and then, roam around looking for a job and then get a job and sent to some place in Africa and be separated from your family and work 15 to 18 hours a day to have a tongue. You have it. And that's all you need for supreme happiness. It's just a tongue to chant the holy names. Yes? But if you have if you work and it's your dharma and you get so much other things, you can use it all for Krishna service. But we're attached to Krishna. And that attachment brings nothing but happiness. But attachment to anything else, if it's separated from service to Krishna, separate from our identity as eternal persons, they increase enmity because people become envious of what you have. And the more you have, the more you're inclined, unless you're God conscious, to be envious of somebody else who has something more. Yes? If you get a brand new, beautiful car, then somebody comes and scrapes it. Does that hurt? Just picture it. You work very, very hard, and you get a brand new Mercedes-Benz. And then the day you take it out of the car dealer, you park it in front of Radha Gopinath temple. Come to the Sunday festival, and you come out and you see there's a big scratch and a huge dent. Does that hurt? And then somebody comes driving by with the same car, smiling, without a dent and a scratch in it. You become envious. Now the brahmacharis, they go out and they're not envious of anything because they don't have anything. But if they get some pride and distinction, then they'll start getting envious of somebody who has better pride and distinction. So enmity. People become envious of you, and you become envious of others. And people, when you have something, people are trying to take it away from you. Yes, in business, the bigger you get, the more other businesses are trying to destroy you. Yes? Even in the academic world. One of my godbrothers, who was very high up in the academic circles, mixing with the top people of Western academia, he told me, you cannot believe how much envy, competition, and trying to tear each other down is among scholars. He says, if you think that there's enmity or disagreement or anything in the GBC, we're like innocent little kindergartners. They're like PhDs as far as this goes. They don't fight with weapons, tridents, or thunderbolts. But it's about prestige, it's about position, it's about, income. Tremendous amount of enmity. What to speak of business, what to speak of politics, in practically any field. Naturally increased enmity, anxiety, because you have to worry about, the more you have, the more you have to worry about maintaining it, sustaining it. And nothing just sustains. You have to keep making more to sustain what you have. Yes, it's not that you just come to a platform and you go, Om Shanti. Now you have this, you have to maintain it. And to maintain it, you have to always be trying to increase. Yes? It's very difficult to maintain. You have to really fight and really work. Anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. O Lord, our Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forbids His devotees to endeavor uselessly for religion, economic development, and sense gratification. O Indra, one can thus infer how kind the Lord is. Such mercy is obtainable only by unalloyed devotees, not by persons who aspire for material gains. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bavarjana. Krishna tells in the Gita that Vedas mainly deal with economic development, religiosity, sense gratification, and liberation, artha kama dhamma moksha. And the Vedas are written by the Lord, trying to elevate people from wherever they may be, somehow or other. But for those who want to achieve the highest thing, the Lord is telling in Bhagavad Gita, do away with all of those and just surrender to me. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami masacha. Devotees, we read about great kings who had so much. Prataparudra, Ambarish, Parikshit, Yudhisthira. So many great kings are the greatest Mahajans. Bali Maharaj, Swayambhuva Manu. Many of the greatest examples are kings who had fabulous wealth and power. And others had nothing. Like Shukadev Goswami, the 6 Goswamis, Narada Muni. They had nothing. Narada Muni had a veena. And that was given to him. It's a donation. So whether you have much or whether you have little, what is important is our goal is not things. Our goal is love, spiritual love, real wealth. And when that's really our goal, when we're unalloyed devotees, then only does the complete mercy of the Lord come upon us. O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be the servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servant so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship. O my Lord, source of all opportunities, I do not desire to enjoy in Dhruvaloka, the heavenly planets, or the planet where Lord Brahma resides, nor do I want to be the supreme ruler of all the earthly planets or the lower planetary systems. I do not desire to be a master of the powers of mystic yoga, nor do I want liberation if I have to give up your lotus feet. Now this is happening millions of years ago. But he's speaking the exact prayer of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago. Na danam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagatisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatad bhaktirohai tekitvai. All he wants is to serve. He's willing to accept any of these positions for the service of the Lord. But he wants nothing to do with any of it if he has to give up the loving service of the Lord. Oh, lotus-eyed Lord. This is a beautiful example. Please, are you all still awake? No! Please listen very careful to this analogy. Here is this mountainous Vritrasura speaking the sweet, tender realizations of his heart. This is what he's praying to become like. He says, as a baby bird who doesn't even have his wings grown yet, or her wings grown yet, as that baby bird always looks for their mother who has left the nest to return with some food. That little baby bird is helpless. They're high up on a tree. They can't fly. They're hungry. The mother's gone to get food. Now, if the mother doesn't come back, what happens to those birds? If they go out of the nest, they fall and die. And there's no food in the nest. They're completely stranded, alone, with nothing. How much does that little baby bird without wings depend on his mother? What's the feelings of separation when there's hunger burning in that little bird's stomach? Waiting for the mother to return. Hoping for the mother to return. Vritrasura says, that's the way I want to become. I want to be expecting the mercy of the Lord, praying to the Lord, chanting the Lord's name in that mood. Or as a little baby calf who's tied up, who's hungry like anything, is just waiting and waiting for the time of the milking of the cow. So that little calf will be untied and she could run over to their mother and drink her mother's milk. Or as a chaste and faithful wife who's without her husband for a long time is eagerly waiting for her husband to return home. Vritrasura says, this is how I am waiting to be with Krishna again. I always yearn for the opportunity to render direct service unto you, my Lord. This is how Vritrasura is yearning for service to the Lord. Oh, my Lord, my Master, I am wandering throughout this material world as a result of my fruitive activities. Therefore, I simply seek friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. My attachment to my body, wife, children, and home is continuing by the spell of your external energy, but I wish to be attached to them no longer. Let my mind, consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you. Now, the nature of this detachment is not to be irresponsible. If one has a family, wife, children, home, and a body, detachment means to attach them to Krishna. To be detached from these things means to attach them to Krishna. My body, my manaso, deho, geho, jo kichumo, arpilim tu alpadi, nandakishore. My body, my home, my words, my life, everything I have, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, who was the most responsible possible grihastha, he's saying, it's all yours. It's all for your pleasure. Its only value is because it's attached to you. And then Sukadev Goswami says, desiring to give up his body, Vritrasura considered death in the battle preferable to victory. Why? Because it was Lord Vishnu's desire. He told Indra, this thunderbolt is meant to kill Vritrasura. So Vritrasura wanted to die because it was Vishnu's desire. And he knew because he was attached to Vishnu and nothing but Vishnu, he was going to go back to Godhead. O king, he vigorously... What happened now is Vritrasura he wanted to die. But he understood he had to perform his duty. And his duty was to fight. But he knew he was going to be killed. So he took his trident and threw it at Indra. The world is trident, flames. And he threw it at Indra. But Indra, unafraid, with his thunderbolt, cut the trident to pieces. Then with that same thunderbolt, he cut off Vritrasura's arm. It's a huge arm. Vritrasura, although when his arms were severed, he angrily approached Indra and he struck him in the jaw with his mace. And then he also struck the elephant. He struck him so hard. Listen carefully. Indra dropped his thunderbolt. At that point, even the demigods were praising Vritrasura. I mean, he's only a one-armed man now, and he's defeating Indra. Indra can't even hold his thunderbolt. Indra was dead now if Vritrasura just pursued it. Having dropped the thunderbolt from his hands in the presence of the enemy, Indra was practically defeated and was very much ashamed. He dared not pick up his weapon again. Vritrasura, however, encouraged him, saying, take up your thunderbolt and kill your enemy. This is not the time to lament your fate. Oh, Indra, no one is guaranteed of being always victorious except Krishna, the original enjoyer, Bhagavan. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation, and he knows everything. Being dependent and being obliged to accept material bodies, belligerent subordinates are sometimes victorious and sometimes defeated. Krishna is Achyuta. Krishna is infallible. We are all fallible within this material world. The soul is infallible because it's part of Krishna. But in this world, the body, the mind, the intelligence is fallible. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is we're trying to perform our duty for the right purpose. That is victory. Victory is an internal character. Victory is integrity. Victory is the conscious effort to be loyal and faithful to the Supreme Lord. And to be a well-wisher of other living beings. All living beings in all the planets of this universe, including the presiding deities of all the planets, are fully under the control of the Lord. Here, and he's explaining how the whole material nature and the laws of karma are devised and created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, directly, either by Krishna's divine intervention or indirectly through the laws of karma, we're all, at all times, under the control of the Supreme Lord. Just to accept that. Just to accept that we're under the control of the Lord and give our hearts to the Lord is the ultimate victory over material nature, over birth and death. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death, so at the appointed time of victory one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by His mercy. Now, Vritrasura says to Indra, "O my enemy." He's speaking according to the time, place, and circumstance. Actually, he's Indra's best friend. But how is he a friend? By being his enemy. If he wasn't being his enemy, he wouldn't be able to show his friendship properly. So he says, "Oh my enemy, just look at me. I have already been defeated, for my weapon and arm have been cut to pieces. You have already overwhelmed me, but nonetheless, with the desire to kill you, I am trying my best to fight. I am not at all morose, even under such adverse conditions. Therefore, you should give up your moroseness and continue fighting." He's chastising Indra. Indra has everything. Here's Vritrasura with no arm, with no weapons, and he's completely ecstatic to just go on with his duty, to fight. And he's telling Indra, "Fight, fight! You're meant to kill me, do it! It's Krishna's will. Oh, my enemy, consider this battle a gambling match. The arrows are the dice. The stakes are our lives, and the board is the elephant carriers." After hearing all this, Indra began to praise Vritrasura. "You're a great Vaishnava. You're a Mahabhagavat. You're better than me. You're an Asura, and you have such faith in God. You have such philosophy." Indra's praising him. But still, he understood that it was his duty. So again, Vritrasura attacked him, and Indra cut off his other arm. And then Vritrasura, whose duty was to try his best, with 100% conviction that he was going to win by losing, he had no arms. This is how somebody just never gives up. Remember Sri Nandanandana Prabhu when he came here? Those 3 words, never give up. We should never give up. Even if our duties are very strange. Vritrasura never gave up. He had no arms, so he laid down and opened his mouth and swallowed Indra and the elephant. He had a big mouth. But he knew he couldn't. Indra was covered by the Narayan Kavacha. So he was protected. Even in the mouth, and he couldn't get out of the mouth. The mouth was shut. Now, our acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, explain that after he ate Indra, he swallowed him, and Indra goes into his stomach now with the elephant. If he wanted to kill Indra, all he would have to do was start digesting him. Right? Indra was finished. But Vritrasura, he was so eager to serve the Lord face to face, like that little bird without wings, waiting for the mother to feed it. That was his anticipation, his longing, his separation to serve the Lord face to face in the company of great devotees. When Indra was no longer in the battlefield, Vritrasura went into Mahasamadhi. He went into such a samadhi, he totally absorbed his entire consciousness in pure unalloyed love and devotion, in remembering Krishna, remembering Lord Shankarshan, his form, his names, his qualities, his pastimes. And therefore his body completely became neutral. If he was active, he would have killed Indra with his digestion. But in his samadhi, he became completely neutral. And therefore there was no danger to Indra, even inside. So Indra was able, with the thunderbolt, to dig through the stomach and come out of the body. And then he went to cut off the head of Vritrasura. It took him 365 days, day and night. The thunderbolt was like just little by little cutting. After 1 year, the head fell off. Because Vritrasura was in samadhi, his neck was stiff. That's one of the qualities of yogic samadhi, is your neck becomes stiff. He was smiling in ecstasy, remembering Krishna. Can you imagine the state of consciousness of Vritrasura? He was alive until his head came off completely. He was so absorbed internally in thinking of Krishna that Indra, with the thunderbolt made of Dadichi's bones, which was the arrangement of Krishna, was sawing his head off little by little for a year, and he didn't feel anything. Now that was a serious surgery without any anesthesia. And Vritrasura didn't feel anything because he was in divine consciousness, absorbed within. And then finally, when the head fell off, the soul of Vritrasura, like a brilliant light, went into the spiritual world, to the planet of Lord Shankarshan, to join the association of Narada Muni and Parvat Muni and all the great saints, and face to face be the loving servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead forever. And Prabhupada writes, and Indra was stuck to rot in this material world. So, who won the battle? Let's take a vote. How many think Indra won the battle? How many believe Vritrasura won the battle? You are parampara in your understanding. So, is gain or loss on this material platform important? The real gain is if the character, the quality, and the cultivation of our consciousness in this world connects us to Krishna. And in the final exam, we pass that exam and return to the eternal abode of the Lord. That is victory. So here, at this moment that we are in the Bhagavatam, Indra just finishes cutting off the head of Vritrasura. And because Vritrasura was a Brahmin, Indra had to do a whole nother tapasya. All kinds of tapasyas he had to do to atone for killing a Brahmin. And then he went back to his abode with his beautiful Nandana gardens, and all of his wealth and all of his apsaras and all of his Gandharvas, and they're all playing for him and singing for him, and he has everything, but he's never satisfied. And he's always worried that some other asura is going to try to take it away, or some rishi like Vishvamitra, or other rishis, they're doing tapasya. They must be doing it because they want to take over my abode to get powers. So there he is. And then sometimes, some beautiful lady, he just gets all disturbed and wants to enjoy her, and then he gets cursed by a rishi and gets eyes all over his body. Yes? So he's always going this and this and this and this. And meanwhile, Vritrasura, he's in an eternal spiritual body in Vaikuntha, face to face, offering loving service to the supreme, all beautiful, all attractive personality in the company of the greatest, most merciful, loving, eternal associates of the Lord. That's the difference. Sukadev Goswami hears this story. Parikshit Maharaj hears this story from Sukadev. And he's very curious. He says, how is it that someone who's this gigantic, massive asura was such a great Paramhamsa, Mahabhagavad Vaishnav? How did he learn these things? Who is he? I don't understand. Usually Parikshit Maharaj says that in this world, it's very rare to get a human form of life out of all these species. And in the human form of life, it's very rare to actually follow religious principles. And amongst people who follow religious principles, it's very rare to really, beyond just trying to find religious principles to improve one's material life, to get liberation. And it's very rare among those people to get liberation. And even among people who get liberation, Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana. It's very rare for one to actually have pure unalloyed devotion to the Supreme Lord. Only that person can be completely peaceful in the ecstatic love of the Lord. So how is it that this rarest of all rare treasures was completely realized by a demon who's fighting against the Lord's devotees? And Shukadev Goswami tells a long answer, the story of Maharaj Chitraketu. Chitraketu Maharaj was a great king, but he had no son. He longed for a son. He yearned for a son. His whole kingdom was nothing without a son. And ultimately, by the grace of the sages, he had a son. Beautiful son. He was told that this son will be the cause of both happiness and sorrow. But every son is like that. That's what he was thinking. Daughters aren't so much sorrow as sons, as far as I can see. Sons can really be crazy people. But what happened is he had his beautiful little son, and he was so happy. To whatever extent he suffered, now he was blissful. But he had several other wives. And because naturally he favored the wife who had the son, the other ladies became envious of her because they were getting more affection. They wanted his affection. He was giving more affection to them, to her. So they went on a conspiracy and poisoned the baby, just so that they would rather have the king and the mother suffer miserably than for the king to give more affection to someone other than them. What kind of love is that? But they did it. And when Maharaj Chitraketu saw that the son was dead, he was in more misery than anyone could ever imagine. He couldn't do anything but lament. How he even lived is unbelievable. And in that state, Narada Muni came. And then, the same philosophy he already heard, he could actually hear and understand. As long as he was anticipating getting something of this world, he couldn't really hear the philosophy. But when he lost everything, and he was in that state, he really heard it. Narada Muni brought the son back to life. And the son himself preached to Chitraketu. He said, "Who's my father? Who's my mother? The eternal soul is going so many mothers, so many fathers." And after this boy woke up from dead and preached to his father, and the son went back into, soul left his body again. Chitraketu was enlightened, fully enlightened, and he became a great sage. He was traveling around on pilgrimage, totally enlightened being, performed tapasya and saw Lord Shankarshan personally, face to face, and fell in love with the Lord, fell in love with the devotees. But somehow or other he made a slight mistake when he saw Lord Shiva with Parvati. Lord Shiva was in an assembly of ascetics, teaching them about asceticism, with his beautiful wife sitting on his lap. Now that's a very different way of preaching to yogis and swamis. So he saw it, and he was glorifying Lord Shiva. He laughed. He said, you're preaching to all these people with your wife on your lap? It's actually amazing. Lord Shiva, he's the greatest Vaishnava. Inconceivable why he did like that. It was all the Lord's arrangement. So Parvati took offense to this. Why are you criticizing my husband? It was the Yogamaya potency to facilitate the Lord's Leela, and a wonderful Leela at that will never be forgotten. You call yourself a saintly person, and you're criticizing Lord Shiva? I curse you to become a demon, go to hell. Now this was a test. When Parvati curses you, it's not like, Ashok Patel next door cursing you. Parvati is the goddess of material nature. When she curses, it's for real. It's 100%. And it happens immediately. Yes? So Chitraketu got down And with a completely peaceful, composed, and grateful heart, he folded palms, he told Parvati, actually I was not criticizing Lord Shiva. But still, it's the will of the Lord that you curse me to become a demon and go to hell. So now I'm very grateful, thank you very much. With your blessings, I will become a demon. And when Lord Shiva saw this, he began to glorify Chitraketu. Just see the devotees of Lord Narayan. How pure is their love, how pure is their hearts. That whether they're in heaven or whether they're in hell, it makes no difference to them. All they care about is that they can serve. And the fact is, nothing within the cosmic manifestation can take away our service. As long as we want that. As long as we want to serve. It's our eternal constitutional position to serve. We simply have to cultivate that desire. Death itself cannot take away our service to the Lord. So Chitraketu became Vritrasura, the Mahabhagavat. And he got to preach in this form, in such a way that Sukadeva Goswami was so impressed, he spoke chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam, just to enlighten the world with Vritrasura's message. And by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, it has become available in such a eloquent and accessible form to the whole world and to all of us. And for this we thank him very much. And I thank all of you very, very much. Would you like to chant?